the lady Miss Vagina Jenkins, and it is time for queer astrology. So this is going to be a story time kind of video. I want to talk about profection years, specifically 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I promise it's okay. It's okay. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, one of the timing techniques that astrologers will use to help you understand what could be the energy of any given time period for you is the technique of profection years. It's a Hellenistic or traditional astrology technique, and the theory goes that basically each year of your life is devoted to the issues and themes of one of the 12 houses, and that it would continue to cycle, right? So that when you were born, you would be in a first house year, and so those themes would be relevant. Themes around self-identity, who you are in the world, how you navigate the world. Or for example, I am 46, and so I'm in my 11th house profection year, which is supposed to be devoted more to your friend groups or social groups that you belong to as a result of your reputation or your career. Me being in my 11th house year is one of the reasons why I wanted to start making YouTube videos about astrology, because I wanted to connect with other astrology enthusiasts and astrology learners and astrologers. I just wanted to make community around my autistic special interest in astrology. So that's the concept behind profection years. Some profection years are supposed to be more challenging than others, I'll say. And some profection years are supposed to be more joyful or growth, healing oriented than others. Now, I don't put too much stock into this. You know, I'm definitely an astrologer who believes more that we determine our own fate, that our own actions and attitudes sort of determine our way in the world. But I do very much think that like astrology is a tool that can help guide us. And so yeah, I want to know what profection year I am in and what themes might be come up and what themes might come up and what I might focus my energy on for the year. I ultimately though determine how my year goes. Anywho, let's talk about challenging profection years. The astrologers be saying that the 4th house, 8th house, and 12th house profection years can be years of loss. And by loss, I mean a sort of winnowing, a sort of releasing. I think that loss can feel harmful or traumatic when we are attached, and maybe overly attached, to certain things, ways of being, ideas, people, places, things, you know, that kind of thing. The word releasing could be a different way of framing these challenging profection years. So yeah, I just wanted to do a short series of videos sharing what my experience of the 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years has been, just to talk about the difference between loss and releasing, and to maybe alleviate any worry or anxiety folks might have as they are going into their 4th, 8th, or 12th house profection years. So let's get into it. Story time. So this is the story of my 12th house profection year. It's a doozy. first and foremost, you know, because these things go in 12-year cycles. I'm 46 years old. I've had more than one 12th house profection year. But I want to talk about the 12th house profection year of graduating college and what that experience was like for me. So my 12th house year started in 2000. I graduated college, go 49ers. And while that was supposed to be a really exciting time, I think in most people's lives, I had nothing to look forward to. I was an undiagnosed autistic person, fumbling through the world, and academia and school life provided me the structure that I needed to survive. And I was incredibly anxious about what my life would look like without that structure. Because I didn't understand what college was for, I placed a premium on going to class and writing my papers and being academically successful. But in my mind now, hindsight being 2020, I now understand that people, neurotypical people, use college to make social connections that will net them the jobs and careers that they move into in the coming years. I did not understand that at the time. So all I knew was I was losing the structure of academia. I was going to be put out of my academic housing. My social group was going to change because all of my friends were based on where I went to school. And that I had no prospects lined up. No jobs, no internships, no grad school, just graduation into the world. And I had no idea about how to navigate the world or even what that meant. So I graduated, lost my housing, did not know where to go, and decided, oh, I might like to live in DC based on nothing but the strength of it's a major metropolitan area that is populated mainly by Black folks. That was it. That's all I had to go on in terms of I would like to live in DC. So I moved to DC. A friend of a friend is letting, a friend of a friend says, oh, I'll connect you with my uncle. You can be a roomer in my uncle's house, right? I am there for all of a week. The uncle is violent and at one point puts hands on me, and I decide to dip, but I have no place to go. So for the next 3 months, I live in my car. I did try living in a homeless shelter a couple of nights, but it just felt so unsafe. It just felt so unsafe in so many ways, and I would never, to this day, I would never recommend any person that's experiencing housing insecurity try a shelter. They are just unsafe places with a whole lot of rules and restrictions, and the staff is unsafe, the people that are there are unsafe. It's just a mess, or at least it was in DC. Maybe other shelters are much more acceptable. So yeah, I began living in my car, which was very expensive. People don't think about this when you're thinking about, oh, I don't have money for housing, I'll live in my car. That means that your food costs are about to skyrocket. That means you'll never have privacy, and your hygiene is about to suffer. Your mental health is about to suffer as a result of all of these things, eating shitty food that is way astronomically priced. And not having privacy, and yeah, it just was a mess. I didn't know what to do. I reached out to my father's side of the family because they lived in Virginia, which is really close to DC. But I didn't know anything about them. I was not raised with my father at all. And so yeah, I got hold of my father and his side of the family, and he agreed to take me in. Because I was not raised with my father, it was my first time really not meeting him. I had met him before, but it was just my first time interacting with him for any extended period of time. And I got the feeling that he He was willing to help me out, but it very much infringed upon his bachelor lifestyle. I also got the feeling that he did not understand me in terms of work, because I had had no internships and made no connections. I just had to accept whatever work was available, and that was work in a call center doing collections calls for credit card companies. Boo, the worst. So I spent my days being verbally berated by strangers that I was calling to collect on their credit cards, and my nights being just sort of tiptoeing on walking on eggshells around my dad's house. And then my father passed, and I was the one to find him, and it was a really traumatic situation. And so my 12th house year to me feels like a loss of all of those 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th house things. In terms of 12th house, after my father passed, I definitely got deeper into my atheism. I could not believe in God after experiencing finding my father's body. I lost all of those college friends in terms of 11th house things. I lost all of those college friends. In terms of 10th house things, I had always had this reputation as being a good student and being academically gifted. Without college, I had no reputation. I had no idea who I was in the world. And I don't think people knew what to make of me other than, that girl is weird. And then, yeah, in terms of 9th house, again, I had no personal belief system, no greater philosophies about life. I had no real knowledge, I felt like, to share with anybody because I had no knowledge of the world. I had knowledge of African American studies and biology, and that is not something that is useful in a call center. That's not something that my father valued. That's not anything that the friends that I made at the call center valued. And so, yeah, that was my 12th house year experience of loss or releasing. When I think of it as releasing, I think about how I released previous conceptions of who I was based on excelling at academia. But when I think about releasing instead of loss, I think about the experience of getting to spend the last 6 months of my father's life with him. And having been a person that was not raised with my father, had no connection with him, the gift of being able to spend that time with him. How that helped me release a lot of the ideas that I had swirling in my head about who he was. And in terms of loss versus release, I got to release any idea that like living in DC was going to be particularly useful or amazing for me. And I ended up, after my father passed, moving to Atlanta, which actually ended up being a hugely successful place for me. It's the place where I established myself as a performing artist. It's a place where I came out and I established myself as like a queer person and a radical thinker. It's a place that let me be and hone in on the weirdness of myself. So yeah, that is my 12th house experience of loss/releasing, also experiencing something even more phenomenal as a result of that releasing. I had to let my identity as an academic, I had to let go of my dreams that I would live in DC, but then I was able to step into this version of myself who is radically queer, who is definitely a fixture in queer communities, who is an artist and a creative. And yeah, that definitely was a huge shift in my life. So yeah, that was my 12th house year. my 12th house experience. I survived it. And once again, I came out on the other side a different and completely changed person, but maybe also a better person. And definitely much more me as a result of my 12th house losses or releasings. Right, that is the video. That is what I have to share. And as always, thank you for watching, and thank you for making time for queer astrology.